So hello everyone. Since 2 years you must be hearing a voice of a boy who is explaining you about science and history. So finally now we have our own setup, and from now on videos will be coming in this format. And as this is my first video, I'm really excited. So Ganapati Bappa Moria. But wait, did I say 2 years? Yeah, technically my channel started in 2019, but then later during the pandemic, I started putting videos about Indian history and people liked it and people started watching it a lot. But then, due to some technical reasons and my mistakes as I was a child, I lost the previous channel. Then I made a new channel and tried to gain all the subscribers again. But as I was busy with my studies, I couldn't post lot of videos in the last year. But now we are finally back, and I want to mention something. I posted a video about Maharaja Suprati and the Assyrian queen Semiramis. That video got 4,000 plus views, and the comment section was unknown people from north, south, everywhere telling me that I am doing good work and I should improve and keep it up. And that is what has taken me to this stage where I have built this setup, and now I'll be posting regular videos. So a huge shout out to everyone. So today's video is going to be about how we, as in the Indians, look at our own history. We are the only species on the world who look at our own history with a foreigner's perspective. And today I'm going to talk about few such examples and then strip off the British perspective and show you the Indian one. So first things first, history does matter. What we think is that look at the West, oh my god, they have progressed so much in science, so much in business, because they don't care about history, because they don't care what the country did in the past, they are just looking at the future. Hell no. The Western countries celebrate even minute things which are not even that great, and we Indians don't celebrate which is great. I mean, we celebrate something which has entered in our culture after the Turks came, and we don't celebrate the original culture of India. We have to see whether India has benefited from this thing where we don't care about our history, and then like who cares, it has happened in the past and look at the future. Have we benefited from it? No, we haven't. The only thing which has happened with that is that the confidence in ourselves has decreased. Because see, whenever you are looking at a person and you want to know about that person, what you would think is that, okay, tell me what the person has did in the past. So I'll look at the good things, the bad things, and then I'll judge him. So this is only about a person where you will look like 20 years of his past. At least, like if he's a early 20s guy or maybe 30s or 40s guy. But if you look at a country, I guess you will have to look at least 10,000 years of history to know like what the country has been through, what the country stands for. If you want to know about that, you should know all this. Am I right?
नहीं, अंधेरे में रहने की आदत पड़ी है तुमको, गुलामी करने की आदत पड़ी है. पहले राजा महाराजाओं की गुलामी की, फिर अंग्रेजों की, अब चंद गद्दार नेताओं की और गुंडों की.
Whenever I looked at this scene, what I thought was that okay, so during the British we were their slaves. Before the British, we were their slaves, and like all the kings and we were their slaves only. Then I would feel that so I was never free. This is not my country. That's what I would feel. And then this is where you start losing confidence in your own nationality. Okay. So what I would like to tell you here is that there was slavery before the British, but then the Marathas came in power and they abolished slavery. So basically when the Turks entered India, they came in and they started killing people and taking their women and children as slaves and selling them into Europe. Okay, then when they established their Turkish empire, the Turkic origin empires in India, in Delhi, they started having slaves in India. So they used to capture Indians, then make them slaves and use them in their harems and in their palaces to serve tea and whatnot. So that is what the slavery in India is. Before that, there is no slavery in India. So when you look at Greece and Rome, you see dungeons for slaves, word for slaves, a different word for a slave. Then also you see the chain in which they were tied. You see that. You see writings about slaves. When you come to India, you don't find anything. There is a word in Sanskrit called Dasa, which is nowadays used by the Marxist historians to claim the word means slavery. So let me explain you the word Dasa. Dasa means a person who you pay to do service, which means a servant. Now, isn't that difference between Dasa and servant? Now, coming to Chanakya's Arthashastra. Chanakya is also known as Kautilya. So, he wrote a book called Arthashastra. In that, he writes that the servants, the Dasas, shouldn't be treated with cruelty. If anybody is doing that, then he should be punished. So even there are rules for not treating the servants with cruelty. तो slavery का तो सवाल ही नहीं उठता. So you don't believe the Indian writer? Okay, let me give you the writings of Megasthenes, who is a Greek writer who came during the reign of Alexander. With Alexander, when he came to India, he was quite surprised to see that Indians don't have slaves and they treat their servants with respect. Megasthenes is going to come up in the video ahead, so remember that guy. He is important. So coming to Varna Vyavastha, a sizzling topic, right? So Varna Vyavastha, let's keep it aside and talk about the casteism and the jati system. So the terrible demonic jati system practice, which was really, really racist, did happen. It did happen. I'm not saying it didn't happen. It did happen, but not until the last 500 years. So what we have to look at is whether a bad practice in a religion or a culture is in practice for a really long time. So when we go back in history, we don't find the terrible system before 500 years. There was a division, okay, but it was not the terrible system which came into the culture later. So what happened was that when the Turks came to India, the culture started corrupting. I'll tell you how. So what the Turks used to do is that they used to go after Kshatriyas. So the Kshatriyas would fight in the battle. When they would get defeated, they would go and find every Kshatriya and kill him. Then they would go in search of the women and the children. Then they would capture them, keep them in their harem. Then they would go for the temples. In the temples, they would carry out a large cow slaughter, and then they would catch hold of the Brahmins and they would kill them because they were the priests, they were the people who maintained the religion. And then they would go for the artisans and the businessmen and everybody else, and they would go for them, capture them, and then convert them. So what started happening was that the so-called upper caste started saying that no. So whenever the Turks would come, they would say no, I am not an upper caste, I am a Shudra or I am a Vaishya. So-called upper caste again. So then that's why you see that many surnames of the upper caste, so-called upper caste, are there in the so-called lower caste. So that is where the system started beginning. Now during Shivaji Maharaj and the Marathas, the system, the original Varna Jati system with no hatred against the Jatis came back a bit. Obviously, because like centuries it is being practiced, you can't take it off so fast, right? But then the British came and their small British minds couldn't understand that this Varna Jati system with no hatred is different from their European terrible caste system where they would treat their people with great cruelty. So what they did was that whenever a baby is born, they made the people mention what caste they are. Now until the British, the Indian society had dissolved into just 4 jatis. But if you go to Megasthenes, the same guy, if you go back to his writings, he writes that there are total 7 varnas, and that in those varnas there are different jatis. Now the jatis are basically lineages of people of what their ancestors have been doing from so many years. Then came the varna, and the surprising thing is that Narad Muni says in Ramayana, which occurred in Treta Yuga almost 7,000 years ago, he says that a person born in the Kali Yuga is born with his jati and varna but can do any task, like any occupation which he wants. But in Treta Yuga, it is not allowed. In Treta Yuga, when you pass a certain education, you have to decide what you have to become. Once you decide, you can't change. So that was the social system in those times, and he also told what will change in the Kali Yuga. So basically, before the Turks, Varna Jati system, no terrible divide between castes. During the Turks, the culture started corrupting a bit, but then the Marathas came, and again it kind of went back to the previous culture. Some of it all did exist, but not the terrible system. Then the British come, and then the corruption begins, and now we have the history of the terrible discrimination between the castes. So I guess this is the Varna Jati system. So we will be talking about this more in the future. But for now, I recommend you to read Meenakshi Jain's books. In that she has talked about this topic and also about another topic which we'll be talking about now. The Sati Pratha, a terrible patriarchal practice which is written in the Hindu religion. No, it is not mentioned in any book of Hindu culture, the Hindu religion. So what I tell you here is that Raja Ram Mohan Roy was a British stooge who writes about how terrible the Sati Pratha is in Samvat Kaumudi, his journal, and he writes about that, and overnight the Sati Pratha is abolished by the British. The terrible practice, it is abolished by the British. So it is written in Samvat Kaumudi, and then it is transferred to and then published in Europe. So Europeans think that the British came to India and then they made brought this barbaric people into civilization who burned their women after their husbands died. So when you go to look at reality, those same East India Company guys who ruled before 1857, they don't mention any such thing like Sati Pratha. They write minute details about Indian culture, but they don't write anything about that. The did you know moment of this subtopic is that the women who are considered virtuous and whose husbands were very alive were also given the title of Sati, which means a virtuous woman. For example, Sati Sita, Sati Anusuya, and Sati Savitri. Oh god, this was my first time shooting a video in this format with a camera and 2 really bright lights in front of me. I swear after I go out of this room, I'm going to see a yellow and a blue patch in front of my eyes. But it was a really fun experience, and from now on, videos will come out in this format. The subtopic which I couldn't cover in this video is timeline. So everybody, don't forget to like, share and subscribe and ring the bell icon and stay tuned to know more.